Hello, everyone, and welcome back to John Paul Piano. You could probably see that the camera setup is a little bit different. So you're probably wondering, well, what are you doing today? What's different about this video? Well, today is going to be very educational, but it's not going to be quite the same as what I usually do. I'm not going to just be sitting informing you about something or be playing a game or something like that. I'm going to be comparing and showing you the difference between a baby grand or essentially a grand piano versus an upright piano. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be showing you sort of the difference between how they work and things like that. So this should be a very good video, I think. Thank you all so much for 100 subscribers. We hit 100 subscribers about a week ago, and the numbers kept going up. So now we're at about 109, 110, something like that. So keep on subscribing. I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to keep on making great musical videos for you all. My musical journey is just beginning, so come along for the ride, and you won't be disappointed. I can assure you of that. If you have any ideas for a 100 subscriber special, I'm still taking suggestions for that up until April. So post those down in the comments. Also, if you have any video requests or types of videos you want to see from me going ahead, post that down in the comments as well. And lastly, the Hidden Harmonies podcast episode 4 is going to be a bit later in April this month because I'm doing it Easter themed. So I want to wait a bit until it's closer towards Easter to release that. So the 100 subscriber special will come earlier in April, like the Hidden Harmonies podcast typically would. Then the podcast episode will come a bit later. Okay, so first things first, what I have to do, as you can see here, I have a lot of things to clear off from my piano. So I'm going to do that, and then I will remove this key cover, this lid here. Now y'all can sort of see how the action and back into the action and the keys and things like that. Lift up the lid, and then we'll get started. So, here is my beautiful piano. I don't know how many of you are new to the channel, but for any of you who are, and I don't even know if I've really ever told the story behind my piano, even to those who aren't new to the channel. So I got this piano a couple of years ago. Let me fix this. There we go. So I got this piano a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago or so, because my teacher was like, well, you're playing on an upright, but you really need a better piano. So I found this piano. It was owned, but practically never used. So it was pretty much new in a way. It's a Howard made by Baldwin. Very nice, very shiny. Yeah, it's a great piano for what I'm doing with it. So here you go. Here is the interior view of the under the lid. So yeah, so that's my piano overall. Now I'm going to take off this. That way you all can sort of see inside there. So yeah. Okay, so now that the lid is off, we are going to go take a look at the upright piano. I'll take that one apart, sort of show it to you a little bit, and then we'll start comparing. So here's our upright piano, fairly old, but it still works. This is actually the piano that I grew up playing on for like the first maybe 7, 8 years of me playing piano. Yeah, probably about that. So I'm very fond of this piano. It's a great piano for its purposes. So yeah, so I'm going to take it apart a little bit, and then we'll start comparing. I'm actually quite happy that my parents aren't home right now, because this piano is actually from when my mom was a kid. So yeah, so mom, if you're watching this, I love your piano. I would never break it. Don't worry, I'm being very careful. Okay, let's take a look at this piano now that it's sort of taken apart. You can see inside. So here is the inside of the upright piano. As you can see, it's a whole lot smaller than the baby grand in the other room. And I even took apart the beneath the keyboard here, so you can see all the strings and everything and the pedals. But now that you've seen it, let's start comparing. So I think the first thing that's quite obvious, like the first thing that you'll notice about the difference between a baby grand or a grand and an upright is the size. Everything in a baby grand or grand piano is done horizontally, whereas in an upright piano it's done vertically. As you saw, the strings and everything are going up and down, whereas here they're going lengthwise horizontally. So yeah, so you can see the strings here from the smallest strings up here, which go from these tuning pins to up here to all the way down here where you have the bigger string. So yes, this is the inside of the baby grand. Here are the tuning pins, or how they tune the piano. They use a little fun tool to tighten or loosen the strings if they're sharp or flat. And then here are the dampers, which we'll talk about a bit. You can see under here the hammers, which come up to hit the strings. And then yeah, so that's the big thing. Pedals are down here. The pedals work differently than upright pianos, which we'll get to. And then down here, we have sort of behind the keyboard, because I took out the lid. And yeah, you can sort of see how everything works in here. It's a bit dark, so I'll turn the light on, but there we go. Yeah, so now you can sort of see a bit down in there a bit better. So the first main difference, other than size, because that's obvious, but the first big difference, other than size, is the way that the hammers work. Because as you can see here, the hammers are all like laying down, and then when the keys are pressed down, they come up to hit these strings. But that's not how it's done on an upright piano. Because if I play the same two notes on the upright piano that I played on the baby grand, you can see the hammers, instead of coming up to hit the strings, they go forward to hit the strings because, as I mentioned, the strings on an upright are all up and down. They're sort of on the back of the piano, whereas on the baby grand, they're all horizontal. So yeah, so with the upright, you got the tuning pins like you did on the baby grand, tune the piano. You have all the strings going vertically from the big strings, which you can see how long they are because I took the bottom off. But so these are all the bass notes. These are the longer strings. You can see down here that they cross and come all the way down to here. The smaller strings for the higher up notes come down, and they only go, some of them only go to here. So that's about halfway between the piano, sort of more towards the keyboard. Yeah, so the hammers here are all going forward to hit the notes. You can see the action a little bit. I could have made it a bit easier for you to see if I took off the keyboard cover, the lid, but I didn't want to have to unscrew these because it's an old piano and, you know, old things break sometimes. So, yeah, but we still should be able to do everything normally. Like you should be able to see everything. So yeah, so that's the first major difference, other than size, is the way that the hammers work. Now we can get even more in depth with this though, because there's actually a mechanical thing that's different between an upright and a grand or baby grand. So it's called the action, which is sort of the whole mechanism of how the keys and the hammers sort of work together to hit the string. And that's different. How it's done is different between a baby grand or grand piano and an upright piano. So here we are back at the the baby grand. Here is the action of my piano, of my grand piano. And as you can see, the keys are all connected with these wooden strips to sort of the backing, the mechanical part here with these bolts and these other wooden parts here that all are connected. I don't think I'm going to be able to get my phone up in there where you can really see, but that's all connected to the hammers down here. See? So, when you depress a key, we'll just take middle C. Who doesn't love middle C? So we'll use middle C for this. You depress that, if you watch, when you press down the key, the wooden strip comes up and that whole mechanism there moves. You can see that these little black parts here move up and they look like they hit these green felt pads here. That then moves the hammers up to hit the keys. If I took the keyboard out, you would be able to see it a bit easier, but I don't really want to do that. I've done it before, but it's not very easy, and yeah, I don't want to break anything, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not like a certified piano technician or something. So what actually happens, I'm going to see if I can get my phone up in there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm depressing the key, and the black part that actually sort of looked like it was hitting the felt is actually part of the hammer. So this whole part right here is attached to the hammer, so when you depress it, the hammer part goes up because it's like a joint. So when one part goes up, the other part goes up. That was sort of a bad explanation. My ways of explaining these things are not so great sometimes because I don't really work on pianos. My knowledge of how pianos work is sufficient for what I do, but it's limited. It's not as in-depth and detailed as some of these piano tuners and piano technicians. So hopefully the way I'm explaining these things at least make a little bit of sense. I apologize if they don't, but I'm doing my best. So a grand piano action more uses gravity. This is another big difference, is that the hammers of a grand piano are more subject to gravity because they go up and down. So that makes it easier to repeat notes on a grand piano faster and to have them actually like sound versus an upright, because the upright is not gravitational. The action and the hammers are not as gravitational as a grand piano. So let's go take a look at that. On the upright piano, seeing as everything is sort of vertical, it's not as gravitationally inclined. So if you take a look down here, if we use middle C, the key itself works the same way. So this wooden strip is attached to the actual white part of the key that you see. And when you depress the key, the wooden strip moves up, and in doing so moves the hammer. You can sort of see a bit better in this piano because everything's a bit more open. I don't want to say that because it's all more compact, but with the grand, I'd have to actually take the keyboard out for you to be able to see this much in depth. But as you can see there, when I depress the key, you see this little fabric blue strip there. That is what is attaching this part to the hammer. And now if you look down there, you can see the springs of the keyboard. That is one of the biggest differences between a grand piano action and an upright piano action, is that uprights are more reliant on springs to move the hammer back and forth versus grand pianos and baby grands, once again, they're more gravitational. So the hammers will just fall back into place. Whereas with the upright, it relies on springs and other such mechanisms to move the hammer back into place. Now let's take a quick look at the dampers and the pedals with a baby grand or grand piano versus an upright piano. So as you can see here, these are the dampers, these black things right here. And you notice there's no dampers up on these higher notes because you don't really need them. Because they're higher up, they don't really use dampers up there. You can also see I sort of need to dust everything, so by doing this video, I'm sort of exposing my messiness. But anyway, putting that aside, these are the dampers of the grand piano. They are all connected to the damper pedal, which is right here, this far right pedal. As I use the damper pedal, you can see these Did I just see a piece of dust floating down? That's crazy. So as I use the damper pedal, you can see these dampers moving up and down all together because they're all attached to the damper pedal on like sort of a type of platform that moves up and down when the damper pedal is depressed. When they move off of the strings, as you can see here, they move off of the strings. That way, when you press down the damper pedal, if you want something sustained, it's sustained. Versus when you move the dampers back onto the strings, it dampens, it dampens the sound because the strings are no longer vibrating. Now, how about the sostenuto pedal? The sostenuto pedal, I think, sort of works the same in both grands and uprights. What the sostenuto pedal is for is if you want a bass note to sustain, but not the upper notes. This can be especially helpful. I use it in things like Debussy and things like that. So if you want a bass note to be sustained, see, so I'm pressing down the middle pedal, but these notes up here don't really sustain. At least like they usually would if all the dampers were lifted. See, so this is because on the middle pedal, only the bass dampers come up. So these are sort of even separately attached to the sostenuto pedal, because these don't come up, but these all do. The last pedal is the left pedal, which is known as the soft pedal or the una corda pedal. This is different from uprights to grands, how this works. So as you can see, at least I hope so, on the baby grand piano, when I press down the left pedal, the whole keyboard shifts to the right. Like the whole thing just shifts to the right. Let's see if you can see that. But yeah, there you go. So the whole keyboard shifts to the right. As you can see through this angle with the dampers, that all the dampers also shift to the right. It's done this way because, once again, it's like the soft pedal, right? So when you're using that, you want everything to be automatically softer. So when it does that, it moves the hammers over where on these upper notes or these more middle range to upper notes that have 3 strings for each key, the hammer only hits instead of 3. And then on these bass notes with 2 strings, it only hits 1 key instead of 2. Now let's take a look at how this is done on the upright piano. So here are the dampers right here on the upright piano. Once again, there's none up here in the upper register because it doesn't really need it. It's okay if those ring out a little bit more. So these are the dampers right here, sort of against the strings right now. Now, when you depress the far right pedal or the damper pedal right here, it's sort of cool because on the upright, because you can take off the bottom pretty much, whereas you can't really do that on the baby grand piano, you can sort of see how this works. So it's connected to this wooden rod that is connected to this other wooden rod over here that is going up and down. And when you press that, all the dampers are connected to that one wooden rod that goes up and down over here. And then all these dampers move back and forth like that. The bass ones do and everything, yeah. So when the damper pedal is pressed down, all the dampers come off of the strings and they can vibrate and sustain as much as they want. Now, how about the sostenuto pedal on the upright piano? Sostenuto pedals on upright pianos don't typically work as well as you would like them to, but I don't really know why that is exactly, because it's sort of like the same type of mechanism as the baby grand pianos. So when you press down the sostenuto pedal, once again, there's a wooden rod that's attached to another wooden rod over there, if you can see that moving. And the bass dampers here come off the strings, just like that. It's all connected to that wooden rod down there, where that way the bass notes can sustain, but then the upper notes don't as much. Now, how about the soft pedal? This is a big difference, actually. And I'm not exactly sure how this works on the upright. I mean, like, you can sort of see what it does, but I don't really know what the logic is behind it. It sort of can make sense. But when you depress the far left pedal or the soft pedal or the una corda pedal, the keyboard doesn't move at all. Not at all. The keyboard doesn't move at all. And the hammers, I don't think that they shift at all left or right. But what you can see here is when I press down the soft pedal, is that the whole rack of hammers moves forward some. The hammers still hit all 3 strings on an upright piano when the soft pedal is depressed. However, they move closer to the strings. I would have to do a bit more research to really know why this is. However, my theory behind it, that somewhat seems to make sense, is that if the hammers are closer to the strings already, then there won't be as much distance between the hammers and the strings for the hammers to gain momentum and force to hit the strings louder. So if they're automatically closer, it'll just automatically be softer, because then there won't be as much momentum picked up along the way. So yeah, if there's anyone who knows the answer to that that's watching this video, let me know down in the comments, because that'd be very interesting to know. So there you have it. I think that those are all of the main differences really between uprights and grands. Hope I didn't forget anything, but if I did, well, my knowledge, once again, of these things is limited. I know as much as I really need to know for what I'm doing about this, but I just thought I'd share a bit of what I knew about it. So thank you all for watching. Please leave a like and a comment, and let me know what you want me to do for a 100 subscriber special, and let me know what videos you want to see in the future as well, and I'll see what I can do. Thank you all once again for 100 subscribers. It was awesome to hit 100 subscribers. Keep on subscribing, because I'm not stopping there. Keep on spreading classical music through the world, and I'll see you all next time.